Well, hey everyone. Happy Math Crush Monday. My name is Shannon Keebler, and I have planned or taught every lesson of math expressions, kindergarten through sixth grade. Thanks again for joining me. Let's talk about why students need Math Talk. So Math Talk comes up all the time. Go back and watch our other videos this month about Math Talk. It's something I could personally talk about like for hours. We know that Math Talk boosts memory. Math Talk boosts social interactions and social skills. Math Talk boosts language support, language development. There are a plethora of reasons why we know that math discourse is important. We also know that we have lower engagement at this time of year. Some of you would say like all year long, we really struggle with that. We have lack of depth of understanding. We're telling students, we're teaching students, but they're just not yet getting proficient or owning the learning themselves. That's a benefit of math discourse. So what we know is the more that kids talk, the more they say it, the more they retain it. The only way we develop language is by speaking it. So yes, we can hear it, and we can even do like a vocabulary activity, but really it's using the language that is where we get the most development from. So we talk about the idea that students should have, or you should have in a classroom, a 70-30 ratio, meaning 70% of the time in a math lesson, students should be talking. 30% the teacher's talking. Now, we're not saying that 30% is all the teacher's talking. Okay, I'm talking throughout the entire lesson. What I mean by that 30% is there's 30% that I am telling. Okay, so I am telling students 30% of the time. I am facilitating 70%. Students are actively talking, telling, explaining, defending, repeating, rehearsing 70% of the time on topic, on track conversation. Now that's going to look different depending on what grade level you're in and what point in the year you are in. So I was just working with a kindergarten group in one of our unit planning workshops. We were just planning out Unit 5. And part of Unit 5 is getting students now in kindergarten to level 3 in the Math Talk. So we were reading about this in the math background. We were looking at some of Dr. Fuson's rubrics on this. And what we basically came down to is by the time you get to that final level of Math Talk, and at this point it's with kindergartners, but it's really with any age, students are holding conversations on their own in our math classroom at this point in the year. So I can have Sarah explain to the whole room how she was solving a 2-digit problem. And Joseph is like, but how did you know to put the 0 there? And Sarah responds. And then Olivia says, are you sure that you should have chosen addition? I thought it was subtraction. And Olivia responds. Okay, so or Sarah responds. So the goal is that the teacher is now really in the facilitator role, versus in Math Talk level 1 and 2, the teacher's initiating the questions, the teacher's having kids, okay, now repeat that. Like the teacher's really having to like do a lot more to get kids to say things. By the time we're in level 3, kids are so used to listening to others and interacting with what their thoughts are that they're naturally having their own thoughts, their questions, their objections, so on and so forth. So it's less of the teacher at this point than it ever has been in the past. But that only happens when we develop it from the very beginning of the year. So you might have a more prevalent role right now if that's not how we set it up for the school year. But still, you can easily implement a 70-30 classroom, 70% students, 30% me, if you follow a couple of very easy guidelines. Number 1, we've talked about this in a couple of other videos, I want you to ask closed questions. When you ask a closed question, yes, no, 24, I want you to turn it into a choral response. Anytime students are using their voices in math, it counts towards their percentage. So if I say, and what do we call a 4-sided shape? Class, and everyone says quadrilateral. Okay, that counts. Then I want you to turn it into from a closed question to a open question. Defend how you know that's a quadrilateral and give me at least 2 different explanations. Class, turn and talk. Now, if it's an open question, there's multiple ways we can answer this, multiple ideas we could have. I want it to be a turn and talk. Notice, no time yet have I been like, pull a stick out of a jar, ask kids to raise their hands. If you're asking kids to raise their hands and you only get 3 hands up, that is a red flag. That process or step is not working, right? We have 3 kids on board, 3 kids that are willing to share answers. Everyone's like, I'm cool, that kid's got me, right? So now you might say, well, I do turn and talk. No one does it then either. You got dominators, steamrollers, etc. That's about structuring that partner talk. So they don't just naturally know how to do it, although we think they should. We have to give a speaker role. Speaker, okay? So peanut butter, I want you to tell jelly. And I say exactly what I want them to talk about. Give 2 reasons you know it's a quadrilateral, okay? Jelly, prove it with a picture. Jellies, give 1 additional way. Jellies, add on. Okay, I'm giving both partners a role. I'm saying who's going to start, who's going to finish, and then I give them both stems. Now, as I get into Math Talk Level 3 and 4 at this point in the year, I need less and less stems because students are naturally now building off of each other. That's how I know I've arrived. Okay, so open questions, closed questions. Open question, a turn and talk first. Once I have a turn and talk, I call on someone to share out loud. I have everyone repeat it. I say, hey, Sarah, repeat what you just heard Olivia say. Okay, there's more that happens with it than just have a person share. We're doing more with that thinking. And if it's still not quite there, okay, turn and talk again. Now that you've heard a couple of other ideas, tell your neighbor, what do you know about a quadrilateral? Once is never enough. So I need to have multiple repetitions to build the depth of understanding among students. Another thing I want you to think about, an easy way to do this, is I want you to go through your math expressions lesson and I want you to highlight every place that there is either a Math Talk icon. Okay, you're going to see it's red. It says Math Talk in action. It says a student like vignette. So there'll be in red writing, it'll tell you what the response should be from a student. It'll have a full vignette of like kindergartner says this, kindergartner B says this, and it'll tell you a sample of what that conversation could look like. I like reading those because it tells me what I'm trying to push my kids to be able to say, like what they should be capable of saying, right? Now I'm going to do, I have all those places that are red in my lesson already mapped out. All the places where it says, ask kids, okay? And it has a Math Talk, even if it doesn't have a Math Talk icon, and it has some questions and then red writing, that is an opportunity for either a turn and talk, a choral response, a collaborative group, something of that nature. And I want you to choose 3 of those highlights that are going to make students think deeper about something, and I want you to put them on sticky notes. Now during your lesson, instead of trying to like randomly know when you're supposed to do this, you have strategically planned 3 different opportunities during that lesson that you're going to stop and have kids defend, describe, repeat, any of those things. The more you do it, the better they are at it. So they're not going to be good at it in the beginning. Okay, but this is a time we want to switch it up and add more engagement in our classrooms. So there's a couple of tips for you tonight in terms of getting even more discourse going in your classroom. Bye for now.